The massive crystalline chamber floated in the darkness of space, orbiting a neutron star that pulsed with rhythmic precision. Inside this ancient structure, representatives from 847 different species gathered for what they believed would be a routine meeting. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, constructed by the first council members over 100,000 years ago. Its walls shimmered with translations of every spoken word, ensuring that all could understand the proceedings regardless of their native language or method of communication. High Arbiter Vexithalan stood at the center platform, his form radiating soft blue light. He was a being of pure energy, contained within ceremonial robes that marked his position as the council's highest authority. Around him, the representatives sat in their designated sectors. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some existed as individuals, others as hive minds. The diversity was staggering, yet they all shared one common goal: maintaining peace and order across the galaxy. The agenda for today included the incorporation of a new species. This happened several times each century, and the process was always the same. A species would develop faster than light travel, announce themselves to the galaxy, and the council would vote on their admission. Most species were grateful for the honor. Most understood that joining the council meant protection, resources, and access to knowledge that would advance their civilization by thousands of years. Vexthalan activated the display, and a blue-green planet appeared above the assembly. Earth, the representatives noted, a single-star system in a quiet arm of the Milky Way galaxy. The statistics appeared alongside the image. Population 8 billion. Technology level, early interstellar. Political structure, fragmented into nearly 200 separate governments. Military capacity, primitive kinetic and nuclear weapons. The species calls themselves humans, Vexthalan announced, his voice resonating through the chamber without sound. They achieved their first faster-than-light journey 3 standard years ago. Our observers report that they are curious, adaptable, and eager to learn. They have constructed several outposts in their local, stellar neighborhood and have made preliminary contact with our border patrols. A representative from the Vrexian collective raised a crystalline appendage. What is their threat assessment? Vexthalan consulted his data. Minimal. They possess no weapons capable of challenging council authority. Their ships are slow and inefficient. Our analysts estimate they are approximately 15,000 years behind council standard technology. Standard incorporation protocols will apply. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. This was expected. New species were always behind the curve. That was the point of the council's protection. They would guide humanity, help them skip millennia of dangerous development, and integrate them into galactic society as productive members. I propose we grant them protected subject status, Vexthalan continued. They will maintain limited self-governance while accepting council oversight. They will contribute the standard 40% resource tithe. They will submit their military forces for restructuring under council command. They will accept educational missions to accelerate their cultural development. In return, they receive full council protection and access to trade networks. The vote was called. Representatives pressed their approval through various means, consoles lighting up across the chamber. The tally appeared above the assembly. 847 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions. It was unanimous, as these votes always were. Protected subject status was an honor, after all. No species had ever refused it. The motion passes, Vexthalan declared. Humanity is hereby declared a protected subject of the Galactic Council. Prepare the standard incorporation documents. The message was prepared with great care. It outlined humanity's new status, the expectations placed upon them, and the benefits they would receive. It was translated into every human language the Council had identified. It was formatted to be accessible to human technology. It was, by all Council standards, a generous and welcoming document. The transmission was sent to the newly constructed Earth Embassy Station, a small facility humanity had built near their moon. The Council had allowed this construction as a gesture of goodwill, though in truth the station was barely worthy of the name. It was tiny compared to Council standards, cobbled together from primitive materials and basic technology. Ambassador Chen Li received the transmission in her small office aboard the station. She was a middle-aged woman with dark hair pulled back in a practical style. Her face showed no emotion as she read through the document on her screen. The translation was accurate. The terms were clear. Humanity was now a subject species of the Galactic Council. She read it twice to be certain she understood correctly. Then she opened a communication channel to the Council's representative office. A hologram appeared before her. It showed a being that resembled an aquatic creature, with translucent skin and multiple eyes. This was Ambassador Threlvix, the Council's designated contact for human affairs. Ambassador Chen, Threlvix said, its voice bubbling through the translator. We are pleased to welcome humanity to the galactic community. Do you have questions about the incorporation process? Chen Li smiled politely. Just one question, if I may. Of course, what happens if we refuse? The hologram flickered slightly. Threlvix's multiple eyes blinked in sequence. I do not understand the question. The document declares us a protected subject species. It outlines various requirements we must fulfill. My question is simple. What happens if we choose not to accept these terms? There was a long pause. Threlvix consulted something off-screen. Ambassador Chen, I believe there has been a misunderstanding. This is not a negotiation. This is an announcement of your new status within the galactic community. All species go through this process. It is an honor. I understand that you view it as an honor, Chen Li replied, her voice remaining calm and professional. However, humanity has a strong tradition of self-determination. We prefer to make our own decisions about our governance and resources. So I ask again, what happens if we refuse? Another pause, longer this time. No species has ever refused Council protection, Ambassador. The concept is unprecedented. Perhaps you need time to consult with your government to help them understand the benefits of Council membership? I have full authority to speak for the United Earth government in this matter, Chen Li said. And I'm simply asking a hypothetical question. If humanity were to decline this offer, what would be the Council's response? Threlvix's form shifted uncomfortably. The Council maintains galactic peace through unity. Species that exist outside the Council structure pose potential risks to that peace. Historically, such situations have required intervention to ensure galactic stability. Intervention, Chen Li repeated. Could you define that term more precisely? The Council has various methods of encouraging cooperation, Threlvix said. Economic pressure, diplomatic isolation, in extreme cases military presence to ensure compliance. But these measures are rarely necessary. All reasonable species recognize the wisdom of Council guidance. Chen Li nodded slowly. I see, thank you for clarifying. Please inform the Council that humanity requires 7 standard days to formulate our official response to this declaration. We will contact you with our decision. 7 days is acceptable, Threlvix agreed, clearly relieved that the conversation was ending. I am confident your leadership will make the wise choice. The hologram disappeared. Chen Li sat alone in her office, looking out the window at Earth hanging in the darkness below. The planet looked peaceful from this distance, beautiful, vulnerable. She opened a different communication channel, one encrypted with codes the Council didn't know existed. Her face appeared on screens in secure facilities across Earth and throughout the solar system. They've made their move, she said simply. Activate Protocol Prometheus. All units to ready status. They think we're primitives. They think we'll surrender without question. Let's show them what happens when you try to make humanity kneel. The Council's compliance fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system, exactly 72 hours after the declaration had been transmitted. 50 ships, each crewed by experienced peacekeeping forces from a dozen different species. The fleet commander, a 4-armed warrior named Krellix from the martial Dravonian species, reviewed his orders with satisfaction. This would be a simple mission. Show force, establish orbital control, and wait for the humans to acknowledge Council authority. The Dravonians had served the Council for millennia. They were warriors by culture, but they followed strict codes of honor. They never fired first. They gave opponents every chance to surrender. Violence was always a last resort, used only when all other options failed. Krellix had conducted 17 incorporation missions in his career. None had required actual combat. The sight of the fleet was always enough. His tactical officer, a being of crystallized thought patterns named Zix, highlighted the positions of human vessels in the system. 43 small craft orbiting Earth, 12 research stations scattered across the inner planets. 3 mining operations in the asteroid belt, 27 deep space probes on various trajectories, all primitive, all slow, all predictable. Standard formation, Krelix ordered. Move to Earth orbit. Begin broadcasting the compliance protocols on all human frequencies. The fleet advanced. It should have been simple. But within minutes, Zix reported an anomaly. Commander, the human vessels are moving. Intercepting us. Krelix asked. Negative. They are leaving. Krelix watched his display as every human ship in the system activated their drives and departed. Not toward the Council fleet, not away from it. They simply scattered in different directions, vanishing into the vast darkness of space. Within 30 minutes, not a single human vessel remained in detectable range. The orbital stations? Krelix asked. Also evacuated. Life support remains active, but no life signs detected. The stations are functioning on automated systems. This was unusual. New species typically gathered their forces for a show of strength, or they fled to their homeworld for protection. They didn't abandon everything and scatter. Krelix consulted the incorporation protocols. Nothing in the manual covered this specific scenario. Maintain position. Continue broadcasting compliance protocols. They will return when they realize resistance is futile. But they didn't return. Days passed and the solar system remained eerily quiet. Earth continued its rotation below them. The automated stations maintained their orbits. But there were no responses to the Council's broadcasts. No communications. No negotiations, nothing. Zix began reporting other anomalies, small ones at first. Sensor readings that didn't quite make sense. Quantum fluctuations in subspace that appeared and disappeared too quickly to analyze. Electronic interference that seemed random but occurred too frequently to be natural. Could it be solar activity? Krelix suggested. Negative. The star is remarkably stable. These readings originate from artificial sources, but I cannot identify their location. More days passed. The fleet maintained its position, but unease spread through the crews. Several ships reported unusual system behaviors. Navigation computers recalibrating without input. Communication arrays receiving data packets they couldn't decode. Sensor arrays detecting objects that vanished before targeting systems could lock on. On the 8th day, the first ship went dark. The DSC Harmony, a medium cruiser from the Felixian Commonwealth. Its system simply stopped functioning. Power, weapons, life support, communications all offline simultaneously. The ship drifted silently in its orbit. Its crew trapped inside with only emergency batteries keeping them alive. Krelix ordered rescue operations, but before they could launch, 5 more ships reported critical systems failures. No visible damage, no energy weapons detected, no attacks recorded. The ships just stopped working as if someone had thrown a switch. How is this possible? Krelix demanded. Our systems are protected by quantum encryption. Our networks are isolated from external access. Nothing should be able to affect multiple ships simultaneously. Zix worked frantically at his console. Commander, I am detecting unauthorized code in our computer systems. It is highly sophisticated. It appears to be learning our protocols and adapting in real time. I believe we are under cyber warfare attack. From whom? There are no human ships in range. The attack is not coming from ships. It is coming from everywhere. Small nodes scattered throughout the system, each one barely detectable. They are communicating with each other, coordinating their actions. Commander, the humans have seeded this entire solar system with autonomous warfare systems. Krelix felt a chill despite his armored skin. They knew. They knew we were coming before we even departed Council space. It appears so, Commander. How advanced are these systems? Can we counter them? Zix was silent for a long moment. Commander, these artificial intelligence constructs are more sophisticated than anything I have encountered. According to the incorporation files, humanity has not achieved true artificial intelligence, but these systems are making strategic decisions, learning from our responses and coordinating attacks across vast distances. Either the files are wrong, or humanity has been deliberately hiding their capabilities. Krelix made his decision. Signal the fleet. We are withdrawing to the outer system. Maintain defensive postures. No ship operates independently. We need to reassess this situation. Back on the Council station, High Arbiter Vexithalan reviewed Krelix's report with growing concern. He had called an emergency session with his advisory council, a smaller group of senior representatives who handled sensitive matters. 6 ships disabled, Vexithalan stated. 0 casualties, but the crews remain trapped until we can restore their systems. No attacks detected by our sensors, no human vessels encountered. And now Commander Krelix reports that human artificial intelligence is superior to our own. Could the humans have purchased this technology from another species? Asked a representative from the technologically advanced Nixari Collective. We have checked. No species in Council space possesses AI of this sophistication, and any species that did would not sell it to a primitive civilization. Then they developed it themselves, the Nixari representative said slowly, which means they are not primitive. They have deliberately appeared primitive while secretly advancing beyond our detection. Vexthalon reviewed the Earth files again, this time looking for details he had previously ignored. Humanity's history was remarkably violent. They had engaged in organized warfare for thousands of years. Their literature was filled with stories of invasion, resistance, and survival. Their entertainment industry produced countless simulations of combat scenarios. Their planet had nearly destroyed itself with nuclear weapons decades before achieving spaceflight. They are paranoid, Vexthalon said aloud. They have spent their entire history preparing for threats. When they looked to the stars, they did not assume they would find friends. They assumed they would find enemies. So they prepared, the Nixari representative concluded. They developed weapons in secret. They seeded their system with defenses. They created artificial intelligence specifically for warfare. They have been waiting for this moment. But why? Another representative asked. Why would they assume the council meant them harm? Vexthalon displayed a document on the chamber's screens. It was a human text, something called a history book. It described how stronger civilizations on Earth had conquered weaker ones, again and again throughout human history. How native populations had been displaced, enslaved, or destroyed by technologically superior invaders. They are projecting their own behavior onto us, Vexthalon realized. They see us as they see themselves. When we declared them subjects, they heard the voice of every empire that ever conquered their ancestors. They do not trust us because they know what they would do in our position. The chamber fell silent. Finally, the Nixari representative spoke. What do we do? We cannot back down. If we retreat from one species, others will challenge our authority. Vexthalon considered this. We attempt communication again. We offer negotiations. We explain that our intentions are peaceful. And if they refuse, then we may face the first true war the Council has fought in 100,000 years. Against a species we do not understand. Using tactics we have never encountered with technology we cannot explain. We declared them our subjects because we thought them weak. We may discover that we have made the greatest mistake in Council history. Ambassador Chen Li finally responded to the Council's communication requests on the 14th day. Her image appeared on the main view screen in the Council chamber, transmitted from an unknown location. She wore the same professional attire as before, her expression calm and neutral. Behind her, the background was carefully blurred, revealing nothing about her location. High Arbiter Vexthalon, she said with a polite nod. Thank you for your patience. The United Earth government has completed its review of your incorporation offer. Vexthalon leaned forward, his energy form pulsing with barely contained anxiety. Ambassador Chen, we have been attempting to contact you for 2 weeks. Our fleet reports unusual activity in your system. Several of our ships have been disabled. Can you explain these events? I can, Chen Li replied. Your fleet entered our territory with hostile intent. We responded with defensive measures. I'm pleased to report that all of your crew members are safe and unharmed. We can arrange for recovery operations once we have concluded our current discussion. Hostile intent? Vexthalon's voice carried a note of genuine confusion. We came in peace to facilitate your incorporation into galactic society. You came with 50 warships, Chen Li corrected. You broadcast demands for our surrender. You expected us to hand over our military forces and submit to foreign oversight. In human history, we call this conquest, not peace. The Council does not conquer. We protect, we guide, we ensure galactic stability by forcing species to accept your authority whether they wish to or not. Chen Li's expression remained neutral, but her words were sharp. High Arbiter, humanity has reviewed your generous offer. We must respectfully decline subject status. However, we would be very interested in pursuing diplomatic relations as equal partners. The Council chamber erupted. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages and communication methods. Equal partners? A species that had barely achieved interstellar travel? The concept was absurd. Vexthalon raised his hand and the chamber fell silent. Ambassador Chen, I do not think you understand the situation. The Council maintains peace across this galaxy. Every species operates within our framework. There are no exceptions. Your technology is primitive compared to Council standards. You lack the military capacity to exist independently. We are offering you protection, education, and resources. Why would you refuse? Because we value our independence more than we value convenience, Chen Li answered. And regarding our military capacity, I believe your assessment may be incomplete. With your permission, I would like to share some information that might clarify our position. Proceed, Vexthalin said, though unease crept through his energy form. Chen Li pressed something off screen. The display changed, showing a star chart of Earth's solar system. But this chart looked nothing like the one in the Council's files. Scattered throughout the system were hundreds of markers. Each one represented a human installation that the Council's sensors had never detected. For the past 30 years, Chen Li explained, humanity has been building a defensive network. We hollowed out asteroids and converted them into military bases. We constructed deep space platforms using stealth materials that your sensors cannot detect. We developed weapon systems specifically designed to counter potential threats from advanced civilizations. The display zoomed in on various installations, massive railgun arrays capable of accelerating projectiles to near light speed, missile silos containing weapons with yields that dwarfed anything in the Council arsenal, manufacturing facilities that could produce combat drones by the thousands, power generators drawing energy directly from quantum vacuum fluctuations. You've been monitoring our communications, Vexthalin accused. For over 40 years, Chen Li confirmed. When we first developed radio telescopes, we began listening to the galaxy. We discovered the Council's communication networks. We learned your languages. We studied your technology. We analyzed your military tactics, and we realized that if we ever announced ourselves, you would attempt to absorb us into your structure. So we prepared. Another image appeared. This one showed a barren moon in a distant star system, one completely uninhabited. The moon sat peacefully in orbit around a gas giant. This footage was recorded 6 months ago, Chen Li said. We wanted to test one of our weapon systems before committing to its deployment. The image changed to real-time footage. A small human vessel appeared near the moon, looking insignificant against the massive satellite. It launched a single projectile. The projectile was tiny, no larger than a coffin. It streaked toward the moon, accelerating constantly. When it struck, the moon didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. The impact released so much energy in such a concentrated space that matter itself broke down. The moon's mass was converted to pure energy in a fraction of a second. The resulting shockwave rippled through the system, visible even from millions of kilometers away. The Council chamber sat in absolute silence. Several representatives activated their own sensors, checking if the footage was authentic. Their analysis confirmed it was real. That weapon, Chen Li continued, is what we call a relativistic kinetic impactor. It accelerates a dense projectile to 99% of light speed. At that velocity, the kinetic energy alone is enough to destroy any target regardless of shielding or armor. We currently have 247 of these weapons deployed throughout our system. Each one is capable of striking any target within 50 light-years with less than 3 hours' notice. Vexthalin found his voice. You have weaponized relativistic physics. That should be impossible without destroying your own vessels in the process. It was challenging, Chen Li admitted, but humanity has always excelled at solving problems related to destruction. We've spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other. When we looked to the stars, we simply applied those same principles on a larger scale. Another Council representative, a being of crystallized thought, spoke up. Why would you build such weapons? Why would you assume the galaxy was hostile? Chen Li's expression softened slightly. Because we know what civilizations do when they have power. We've studied our own history. Every time a more advanced culture encountered a less advanced one on Earth, the less advanced culture suffered. They were conquered, enslaved, or destroyed. We saw no reason to assume galactic civilizations would behave better than our own ancestors did. The Council is not like your historical empires. Vexthalin insisted. You declared us your subjects without asking, Chen Li replied. You sent warships to ensure our compliance. You demanded tribute and submission. From our perspective, you are exactly like our historical empires. The only difference is scale. She leaned forward, her eyes meeting Vexithalan's energy form directly through the screen. High Arbiter, humanity doesn't want war. We never wanted war, but we prepared for it anyway, because we've learned that hope is not a strategy. You can call us paranoid, you can call us aggressive, but understand this. We will not surrender our freedom because you think you know what's best for us. And if the Council refuses to accept your independence? Vexithalan asked, though he already feared the answer. Then you'll discover what it means to fight a species that considers asymmetric warfare an art form, Chen Li said simply. A species that has no honor codes restricting their tactics. A species that will use every advantage, exploit every weakness, and fight with a creativity born from thousands of years of desperate survival. You have 10,000 ships. We have 10 billion humans, each one raised on stories of underdogs defeating impossible odds. Ask yourself, can you afford to find out which matters more? She paused, letting her words sink in. I'm transmitting coordinates for a neutral meeting location. We can negotiate a mutual defense treaty. We can establish trade relations. We can share knowledge and technology as equals. Or you can try to force us into submission. But if you choose that path, the Council will discover that conquering humanity is far more expensive than befriending us. The transmission ended. Chen Li's image disappeared, leaving the Council chamber in shocked silence. Vexithalan looked around at the assembled representatives. Fear showed on every face, in every gesture, in every fluctuation of energy or thought. Finally, the Dravonian military commander spoke. High Arbiter, I must advise against continued military action. My fleet cannot counter enemies we cannot see. Our honor codes prevent us from using many of the tactics that would be necessary in this conflict. The humans have no such restrictions. We cannot back down, another representative protested. If one species defies us, others will follow. If we fight humanity and lose, Vexithalan said quietly, the Council's authority ends anyway. And based on what we have just seen, I am no longer certain we would win. He made his decision. Prepare diplomatic protocols. We will meet with Ambassador Chen Li. We will negotiate, and we will pray that humanity proves more reasonable than their weapons suggest. The Council's decision to negotiate lasted exactly 16 hours. Then the hardliners took control. Supreme Military Commander Vaskthor, a towering being from the warrior Krellian species, called for an emergency military council. He argued that backing down from humanity would signal weakness. Other species would see the Council as vulnerable. The entire galactic order would collapse if they allowed one primitive species to dictate terms. We have 10,000 ships available, Vaskthor declared. The humans have shown us one weapon. One. They are attempting to intimidate us with demonstrations and threats. But when faced with overwhelming force, they will break like all species break. Not everyone agreed. Ambassador Threlvix, who had conducted the initial contact with humanity, warned against underestimating them. They have been planning this for decades. Everything we have seen suggests they understand our capabilities better than we understand theirs. Then we learn their capabilities by testing them, Vaskthor responded. We assemble our full military might. We demonstrate true galactic power. We give them one final chance to surrender, and if they refuse, we show them the price of defiance. The vote was close, but the military faction won. Within days, the largest fleet in Council history assembled at a staging point, 2 light-years from Earth. 10,000 ships, crewed by warriors from 40 different martial species. Each ship was armed with weapons that had maintained galactic peace for millennia. Each crew was trained in the honorable conduct of war, as defined by Council tradition. Vaskthor reviewed his forces with satisfaction. This would be a quick campaign. They would blockade Earth, destroy human defensive installations, and force surrender within weeks. The humans had shown creativity and cunning, but creativity couldn't defeat overwhelming firepower. The fleet jumped to Earth's solar system and found it empty. The human installations Chen Li had revealed were gone. Either they had been moved or they had never existed at all. The space around Earth showed no signs of military presence. Even the automated stations had been removed. Where are they? Vaskthor demanded. His sensor officer worked frantically, scanning all known human colonies. Detecting minimal presence, most have been evacuated. They're hiding, Vaskthor concluded. They saw our fleet and ran. Begin systematic sweeps. Find their bases. Find their ships. Find their weapon platforms. The fleet spread out, searching the system. That's when the attacks began. The first ship to die was the CNS Valor, a destroyer on the fleet's outer edge. It simply exploded. No warning, no incoming fire detected. One moment it was scanning an asteroid belt. The next moment it was debris. What happened? Vaskthor roared. Unknown, Commander. Analyzing debris field. It appears they struck a mine, but our sensors detected no mines in that area. Scan every cubic meter of space. Find these mines, but the mines weren't the real problem. The real problem started when ships began reporting supply issues. Food stores contaminated with bacteria that shouldn't exist in sealed environments. Water recycling systems failing. Fuel reserves measuring lower than they should despite no usage. Sabotage, the logistics coordinator reported. Someone accessed our supply systems before we departed. They contaminated materials with programmed bacteria that remained dormant until now. They corrupted our inventory systems to hide the damage. Commander, our supplies are compromised across 40% of the fleet. How is that possible? Our supply depots are the most secure facilities in Council space. I don't know, Commander. But the humans knew we were coming before we assembled. They had time to infiltrate our systems. More ships exploded. The mines were everywhere, completely invisible until they activated. The Council's best sensors couldn't detect them until the moment they detonated. The fleet slowed its advance, but that created different problems. Human ships appeared from nowhere, launched devastating attacks, and vanished before the Council could respond. They didn't fight fair. They didn't announce themselves. They struck from behind, from below, from angles that should have been impossible. They used weapons the Council had never encountered. Compressed antimatter warheads, quantum destabilizers, AI-guided swarms of microscopic drones. Vaskthor realized too late that humanity had spent those 2 weeks studying his fleet. They had mapped every ship, identified every weakness, and planned their attacks with surgical precision. The Council fought with honor. The humans fought to win. Communication systems began failing. Ships lost contact with the fleet command. They received contradictory orders. Navigation systems led them into ambushes. It took the Council's technical staff 3 days to realize that human AI had infiltrated their networks and was feeding them false information. How did they get into our systems? Vaskthor demanded. They didn't, Commander, his chief technician explained. They were already there. When we scan our core computer systems, we find code that has been present for months, possibly years. It was dormant, waiting for activation codes. The humans have been inside our network since before we even knew they existed. The psychological warfare was worse than the physical attacks. Human broadcasts filled Council communication channels. They showed footage of destroyed Council ships. They listed casualty numbers. They described every tactical failure in detail. They didn't threaten. They didn't boast. They simply provided information, letting the Council crews understand exactly how badly the war was going. Boarding parties were sent to secure human installations that the fleet finally located. The Krellian warriors approached with confidence. They were the finest fighters in Council service, trained from birth in combat. They would capture these installations and force the humans to reveal themselves. The boarding parties found nightmares. The installations were trapped in ways the Krellians couldn't predict. Corridors that looked safe suddenly vented into space. Sealed doors opened to reveal rooms flooded with poison gas. Security systems that had appeared disabled suddenly activated, targeting invaders with ruthless efficiency. And when the boarding parties finally encountered human soldiers, they discovered that humanity's reputation for violence wasn't exaggerated. The humans fought with a ferocity that seemed suicidal. They set traps using their own bodies as bait. They rigged explosives to detonate even after they were dead. They fought in ways that broke every rule of honorable combat. But the truly terrifying part was that the humans were winning even when they died. Each boarding party lost more warriors than they could afford. Each installation cost more to capture than it yielded in intelligence. The Krellians, who had never lost a ground combat operation in their history, found themselves retreating from positions they had successfully taken simply because holding them cost too much. Council psychologists interviewed captured human soldiers, trying to understand their mindset. What they learned horrified the Council leadership. They've been preparing for this their entire lives, the lead psychologist reported. Human entertainment consists largely of simulated combat. Their children play games about war. Their stories celebrate last stands and desperate victories. They have a cultural concept they call never give up that seems to override basic survival instinct. Commander, These beings are not fighting for territory or resources. They're fighting for their identity. You cannot defeat that with conventional warfare. 3 months into the war, the Council fleet had been reduced from 10,000 ships to 3,000. Not all were destroyed. Some had been captured. Some had been disabled and abandoned. Some had simply fled after their crews refused to continue fighting. The casualty count reached numbers the Council hadn't seen in thousands of years. And humanity hadn't committed a single major warship to open battle. They fought entirely through stealth, sabotage, and psychological warfare. They let the Council wear itself down, trying to fight an enemy that refused to stand and be hit. Vaskthor sat in his command chair, staring at displays that showed a war he couldn't win. His honor demanded he continue fighting. His duty demanded he minimize Council casualties. The two imperatives were incompatible. A communication came through. Ambassador Chen Li appeared on his screen, looking as calm as she had in their first contact. "Supreme Commander Vaskthor," she said, "you've lost 7,000 ships in 3 months. Your supply lines are broken. Your communications are compromised. Your warriors are exhausted and demoralized. You cannot win this war, but you don't have to lose it either. You offer surrender?" Vaskthor asked, though he knew the answer. "I offer negotiation. Return to Council space. Acknowledge that humanity will not be your subjects. Allow us to join the galactic community as equals. In exchange, we stop the attacks. We return your captured personnel. We even help you recover your disabled ships. And if I refuse, if I fight until every ship is destroyed, then you'll die for nothing," Chen Li said simply. "Your honor demands sacrifice, but does it demand stupidity? You can continue fighting a war you cannot win, or you can make peace with an enemy that never wanted to be your enemy in the first place." Vaskthor looked at his casualty reports. He thought about the warriors who had died following his orders. He considered his duty to the Council versus his duty to his people. He made his decision. "I will take your offer to the Council. But know this, human." The peace conference was held on a neutral station in deep space, far from both Council territory and Earth system. The station had been constructed specifically for this meeting, a collaboration between human and Council engineers. It was one of the first projects they had worked on together, and it showed. Half of the station used Council technology, elegant and efficient. The other half used human designs, practical and heavily armed. The contrast was striking. Ambassador Chen Li arrived with a delegation of 10 humans. They were an interesting group, representing different parts of Earth's government and military. They wore simple clothing, carried no visible weapons, and walked with the confidence of people who knew they had already won the war that mattered. High Arbiter Vexithalan led the Council delegation. He brought representatives from every major faction within the Council, ensuring that whatever agreement they reached would have broad support. He needed this peace. The Council was fracturing. Species that had once seemed content were now questioning their subject status. If the Council couldn't find a stable resolution with humanity, the entire galactic order might collapse. The two groups met in a circular chamber designed for diplomatic functions. They sat across from each other at a table that adjusted its height and shape to accommodate different species. Translators hummed quietly, ensuring everyone could understand every word. Vexthalan spoke first. "Ambassador Chen, the Council is prepared to discuss terms for a peaceful resolution to our conflict." "We appreciate that, High Arbiter," Chen Li replied. "Humanity never wanted this war. We're pleased to explore alternatives." "Let us be direct," Vexthalan said. "The Council cannot accept your complete independence. If we do, dozens of other species will demand the same. The galactic order we have maintained for 100,000 years will end." "Then change your order," Chen Li suggested. "Instead of subjects, have partners. Instead of demanding submission, offer cooperation." A Council representative from the Felixian Commonwealth spoke up. "That is a pleasant ideal, but impractical. Different species have different development levels. Some require guidance, some require protection from themselves. And who decides which species needs guidance?" Chen Li asked. "You? Based on what criteria? Humanity developed nuclear weapons before we achieved global peace. By your standards, we should have been conquered for our own protection, but we solved our own problems. We grew, we learned. You would have taken that opportunity from us. We would have prevented you from destroying yourselves," Vexthalan corrected. "Or you would have prevented us from becoming strong enough to resist you. Chen-Li countered. High Arbiter, let me tell you what we've learned about the Council during these negotiations. You call yourselves peacekeepers, but you've created a galaxy where no one can challenge you. You've convinced 800 species that they need your protection, your guidance, your wisdom. But what you've really done is ensure that no one ever becomes powerful enough to compete with you. The chamber filled with angry murmurs from the Council side. Chen-Li raised her hand, asking for silence. I'm not saying you're evil, she continued. I'm saying you're comfortable. You've created a system that works for you. And you've convinced yourselves it's the only system that can work. But humanity has a different perspective. We've seen empires rise and fall on our own world. We know that all systems eventually fail. We know that the only way to build something lasting is to build it on consent, not coercion. So what do you propose? Vexthalin asked. Chen-Li pulled out a document and placed it on the table. A treaty. Humanity joins the Galactic Council as a full member. We have voting rights equal to any other species. We maintain complete autonomy over our internal affairs. We pay no tribute. We accept no overseers. In exchange, we agree to several conditions. She activated a display that showed the treaty terms. Council representatives leaned forward, reading carefully. First, we agree to follow the Council's laws regarding warfare. We won't attack other member species without Council approval. Second, we agree to share certain technologies that could benefit the galactic community. Medical advances, agricultural improvements, things that help rather than harm. Third, and this is the important part, we offer our services as troubleshooters. Troubleshooters? Vexthalin asked. The Council has maintained peace for 100,000 years through overwhelming force and diplomatic pressure. But you've admitted yourself that the current situation isn't sustainable. Species are questioning your authority. Some may become violent. You need someone who can handle situations that diplomacy can't solve, someone who isn't bound by your honor codes, someone who can do the things you can't do while maintaining your reputation. Chen-Li smiled slightly. That's us. When you have a problem that requires creative thinking, ruthless tactics, or the willingness to fight dirty, you call humanity. We become your troubleshooters. Your specialists. The people you bring in when everything else has failed. The Council representatives looked at each other. Several began arguing immediately. The concept was controversial. But Vexthalin raised his hand for silence. You want us to legitimize your methods by making them official Council policy? We want you to recognize reality, Chen-Li replied. The galaxy isn't as peaceful as you pretend. There are threats out there. Pirates, rebels, species that refuse to follow Council law. You handle them with fleets and blockades, methods that cost resources and lives. We can handle them more efficiently. And by making us part of the Council structure, you ensure we're working with you rather than against you. A military representative spoke up. Why would you agree to this? You've won your independence. Why offer to serve the Council? Because we're not stupid, Chen-Li said bluntly. We won one war against an enemy that fought with honor and restraint. If the Council decided to truly commit to destroying us, if you abandoned your moral constraints and fought the way we fight, we might not survive. Better to be inside the system influencing it than outside the system threatening it. And honestly, we could use the trade access. We're not self-sufficient. We need resources from other worlds. We need knowledge from species that have been exploring the galaxy longer than we've existed. Partnership benefits us too. Vexthalin studied the human ambassador. She was clever, he realized. She was offering the Council a way to save face while accepting humanity's independence. She was giving them a reason to explain the change to their subjects. She was turning humanity's most frightening qualities into assets rather than threats. I have a question, Vexthalin said. Why did you prepare for this? Why did you assume we would be hostile? Chen-Li's expression became more serious. Because we've been asking ourselves one question since we first looked at the stars. Where is everyone? If intelligent life is common, if civilizations arise frequently, why haven't we seen evidence of thousands of advanced species? Where are the ancient civilizations? Where are the megastructures? Where are the signs of expansion and exploration? She paused. We developed many theories, but one theory worried us more than others. What if someone is preventing new civilizations from arising? What if someone maintains control by ensuring no species ever becomes powerful enough to challenge them? When we discovered the Council, when we learned you control 800 species, we thought maybe we found our answer. Maybe you're the reason the galaxy seems so empty. Maybe you eliminate any species that refuses to submit. That's not true, Vexthalin said. We know that now. Chen Li agreed. But we didn't know it then. So we prepared. We assumed the worst and built our defenses accordingly. When you declared us your subjects, it confirmed our fears. We thought you were the threat we'd been expecting. And we responded the way we've always responded to threats, with overwhelming force and absolutely no mercy. The chamber was quiet. Finally, one of the council representatives spoke. You are terrifying, Ambassador Chen. Your species is terrifying. You look at peace and prepare for war. You look at friendship and see potential betrayal. How can we trust beings who think this way? The same way we learn to trust you, Chen Li replied. Slowly, carefully, and while keeping our weapons ready just in case. High Arbiter, humanity doesn't want to be the galaxy's enemy. But we will never again be anyone's subjects. We offer you partnership on equal terms. We offer you our strengths in exchange for yours. We offer you a future where the Council remains powerful not because you force species to obey, but because working with you is the smart choice. Vexthalon made his decision. I will take this treaty to the full Council for a vote. I cannot promise they will accept it. Many will resist the idea of granting you equal status. Then tell them this, Chen Li said. The galaxy is changing whether the Council wants it to or not. Humanity exists now. We're not going away. We're not surrendering. You can adapt to this new reality, or you can fight it. But fighting us nearly destroyed your fleet. Fighting every species that follows our example will definitely destroy the Council. Change is coming, High Arbiter. The only question is whether you'll guide that change or be swept away by it. The vote took 3 weeks. The debate was fierce. Traditionalists argued that accepting humanity's terms would destroy everything the Council had built.